Breaking news right here. Retired Nigerian Navy Vice Admiral Ibokete Ebaz has now been declared as the administrator of Rivers State. Has now been in a situation where President Bola Tinubu has invoked the Constitution provision of Section 305, declaring the state of emergency following the political tension which has led to serious security concern in the state. The president earlier today met with service chiefs, including some leaders of the National Assembly, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives after a meeting which ended after several meetings behind closed doors. There were no briefings after that meeting, but the president declared that considering the situation where parties involved were not able to yield to his counsel, and no government, according to him, based on the evaluation, is in place in Rivers State. The president has deemed fair that it will not look on as a responsible president and look on what has become a major political crisis, and therefore has declared retired Vice Admiral Ibokete Ebaz as the administrator in Rivers State. I'm being joined tonight on the program. Let's get some legal perspectives to it, and of course, get to know what is going on without having to understand what may have happened today. We wanted to discuss this program. So Mr. Tonye Cole, the APC governorship candidate in Rivers State in 2023, is our guest also on the program. So it does happen. A few minutes ago, we got a hint that this is going to happen, and the president is going to address the nation on the situation in Rivers State. So tonight, let's give you some perspectives into this. But let me refresh your memory on what exactly the president said about the state of emergency in Rivers State.
It has become inevitably compelling for me to invoke the provision of the Section 305 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, to declare a state of emergency in Rivers State with effect from today, 18th March, year 2025, and I so do. By this declaration, the governor of Rivers State, Mr. Similaye Fubara, his deputy, Mrs. Ngozi Odu, and all elected members of the House of Assembly State are hereby suspended for an initial period of 6 months. In the meantime, I hereby nominate Vice Admiral Ibokete Ebaz, retired, as administrator to take charge of the affairs of the state and the interests of the good people of Rivers State. For the avoidance of doubt, this declaration does not affect the judicial arm of Rivers State, which shall continue to function in accordance with their constitutional mandate. The administrator will not make any new laws. He will, however, be free to formulate regulations and may be found necessary to do his job, but such regulations will need to be considered and approved by the Federal Executive Council and promoted by the President for the state. This declaration has been published in the Federal Gazette, a copy of which has been forwarded to the National Assembly in accordance with the Constitution. It is my fervent hope that this inevitable intervention will help to restore peace and order in Rivers State by awakening all the contenders to the constitutional imperatives, binding on all political players in the
That's earlier on, portion of what the president said in his nationwide address. So who is the administrator in Rivers State? Who is the man that's going to be in charge for the initial 6 months? Is retired Vice Admiral Ibokete Ebaz, who is a former chief of naval staff. The man whose picture you're seeing earlier on your screen, Vice Admiral Ebaz, was the chief of naval staff from 2015 to 2021, and he will be serving as the administrator, taking over from Governor Similaye Fubara and his deputy for an initial 6 months. What do we know as of now? much we are telling you, but legally, what does this mean? What are the situation from the Rivers people point of view? Let me get into the conversation tonight. Liberals Oshoma is a lawyer and will be bringing us up to speed. The last time we had a state of emergency in this country was 3 states in northern Nigeria by former President Goodluck Jonathan. And also now we are hearing from President Bola Tinubu. This is an extraordinary measure. Also on the program, I have joining me from our Lagos studio, Mr. Tonye, who was the governorship candidate of the APC in the 2023 election. He's live for us. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. Let's get an initial view from you, Mr. Cole. As a Rivers man, how does this come to you? Did you ever see this come, a state of emergency in your Rivers state?
You know, this is a sad day for us as Rivers people, because it's the lowest mark that you can get as a democratic entity that a state of emergency be declared on you. It means 3 things immediately. It means first that you are failures as political entities. It means secondly that you have not respected any kind of democratic regulations or laws for which you have been elected to represent your people. And thirdly, it's a sign, a mark, a vote of no confidence by the federal institution in the ability of Rivers State to solve its problems. This, for me, is a very, very dark day in Rivers politics.
But, I mean, what do you make of the president's decision or the president's move? A political situation that is generating. Earlier on, we saw an explosion. Those who are in the investigation are ongoing, but those who are saying that there may not be any direct link with the political tension in the state, but there are drums of war already, militants already speaking, there are agitators, there are those who are aggrieved, who are saying hell will reign in Rivers State. Do you think that the president was right politically weighing in this matter? In this matter?
So this is coming, it's coming a bit late in the day. The resolution of the political situation should have been done a long time ago, but that's in the past. What we have today is a situation where tensions had risen. It may not be related, but an event happened last weekend at a very, very sacred ground to the Jaws, especially the Calabaris. And I felt that that was very ill-intended, whereby the minister and a lot of people went into Calabari land in Abalama to make some declarations. That was poking the tiger in the eye. It's no coincidence, as far as I'm concerned, that a day later or 2 days later, you begin to see explosions rocking the Niger Delta. A few minutes before coming on air, before this presidential state of emergency, a second explosion happened. My thinking and my thoughts is that the warnings have been coming, saying that if we continue in this direction, then installations will begin to be targeted. So I don't think it's a coincidence. And I suspect that the president did not have much of a choice at this point, but to begin to draw the line and take a hard situation. It's still a disgrace to Rivers State and the people of Rivers State that it has come to this.
Would you consider it, Mr. Cole, that this is hardcore? That this could be, it's so much of a hard tackle on the situation?
It is, but again, you know, it's one of the provisions that the Constitution makes within a democratic setting. But it is something that is kept so far away that it is only evoked when all else has failed. And that, for me, is where the indictment is. Sheon, this is a big indictment on every political actor in Rivers State. We have been saying it over and over and over again, that people had to become mature, sit at the table, stop thinking about personal interests, and begin to consider the people of the state. But nobody cared. They don't care about the people. Everybody was just very, very positioned about self-interest, power grabbing, and this is the result of it. I don't think it's not the end of the resolution. You know, what's going to happen now is that there has to be two sides of this. The military administrator or the sole administrator former military admiral, is going to have to sit down and do governance. Now, behind the scenes, there is going to have to be a very cold and hard calculation on the politics. If we cannot resolve the politics in 6 months, then you're going to see a situation where this group of politicians will have to be wiped out and a whole generation of new politicians come into the scene. It's a very serious day for Rivers State.
But take a listen to this, right? The president looks like a helpless man in his statement. Politically speaking, this is what the president said. He said, with the crisis persisting, there is no way democratic governance, which we have all fought and worked for over the years, can thrive in a way that will redound to the benefit of the good people of the state. He says, it is public knowledge that the governor of Rivers State that's not the portion I wanted to bring up. He made a mention of how he had persuaded both parties, but they have ignored him according to... So now this is the portion. He said, I've made personal interventions between the contending parties for a peaceful resolution of the crisis, but my efforts have been largely ignored by the parties to the crisis. It sounded like the voice of a helpless man or an elder in resolving a matter that has come to nothing. What do you make, how do you analyze that kind of statement coming from the president when he said, I've tried to call the parties to order, but they've ignored him?
Well, I'll have to take the president's word for what he has said. From ab initio, for those of us who have been watching this internal battle between a father and son inside the same house, throwing all sorts of tantrums and breaking bottles inside, we had always believed that the one person who had the ability and the right to take a stand and bring all of this to an end was the president. And I believe that there were many things that he had within his power that would have brought it to a resolution much earlier. I believe that along the way, the president did some, but did not push as hard as he could have if he was going to resolve this thing today. Now he has been forced to take a decision that is hard and much harder than he would have wanted to take at any point in time. So I still believe that he could have done more earlier, maybe chose not to so that the people can resolve it themselves. It degenerated to what it is, and right now he has no choice but to declare this. It's not good for the people of Rivers State, whichever way you look at it.
Do you think momentarily that the declaration of the state of emergency would douse the situation, the tension, and perhaps all parties, all warring parties, will now have to calm down? Do you think that will douse the tension?
No, Sean, I don't. So I believe, if I know the way that we are in Rivers State, behind the scenes, you're now going to have some very serious jostling for who will take advantage of this declaration, who is going to work on the state of emergency, who is going to be prepared in 6 months' time, which powerhouse is going to come out. If nothing is done on the political end, you would find out that in 6 months' time, we're still back to where we are, or maybe even worse. And so the president still has a lot of work to do behind the scenes. This is the time when you really have to call people together and let them know that their political future is either totally dead if they do not do this, or people come together to work out a resolution. If in 6 months' time, all political parties do not, or let me change that. If in 6 months' time, all political actors do not come out with a resolution amongst themselves as to how they are going to move Rivers State forward for the benefit of the people of Rivers State, nothing will change.
Give us an understanding of how, because I brought you on the program some months ago and I asked you, what do you think were the possible or the very strong possibility of resolving this crisis? And you gave me some names, about 4 of them, that you think can weigh in. But it does look like those measures were not considered. But with the situation on the ground right now, has this not gone beyond the powers of Similayo Fubara and Yensom Wike?
Oh, wow. So first of all, thanks to Libelos, he has opened a whole different kind of worms. And it's a very serious issue that he has put on the table. And it just kind of cements the position that I have that this is going to be a long haul. Essentially, back to how do we resolve this issue? I said earlier on that the administrative issue, they've signed that into law, that's going to continue. But what you're going to be seeing now, behind the scenes politically, are three possibilities. The first possibility is that there might be a challenge on the legal aspect of the state of emergency. So some people may go to court and that will just bring things back. The second may be a consolidation of hard positions, as I said earlier on, where people are trying to take advantage of this state of emergency. But Seun, the third is always where I have been, that we need to have cool heads that are going to sit around the table and decide that, you know what, big sacrifices have to be made. This state of emergency is not good for us. It's not good for the state. And coming out of it, whether it's 6 months or 1 year, things have to change drastically. So we're back to how do we find a solution? And I will still believe that the only way that we're going to solve Rivers' problem is that all the parties who have been worrying, and not just Sim and Wike, but every other party must come to that table and decide to give up ground. If we don't choose to give ground up, nothing will change. So, big battles ahead.
Yeah. Now, so the political tools or the powers that both parties in this field wield, where the governor has a political power. Nyesom Wike, the former governor, is a sitting minister, FCT minister, so that political power is there also. But now, by the proclamation of the president, Siminalayi Fubara has lost momentarily his political power. There are those who will be thinking on Siminalayi Fubara's camp that you've taken power from one side of the divide and one other party has its power retained. Is that balance? Is that fair?
And that's a very, very good question. And that's why I said that the political work behind the scenes still has to happen. And people are going to raise this question. And again, it will fall on the president to show balance and show fairness. He has to step back and really be the father of the nation at this point in time. He has taken a position which he says that this is for the good of the people. But then there are political actors on both sides that have not been acting on the good of the people. Now, is the president willing to diffuse that balance? And one of the suggestions that you've made might be to say that, you know what, everybody who is a political actor within the federal level should step down. Everybody who is a political actor within the state level should step down. Let's bring everybody back to status quo and let's start building up from there. Very hard decisions have to be taken by the president on the political side. What he has done on the side of the administrative side, state of emergency, is a very tough decision on that side. But the decision politically has not yet been taken in the way that is going to resolve this crisis. And until that is done, I'm afraid that this war continues.
When the president, Mr. Cole, says that I've spoken to both sides of the divide and I've tried to intervene personally, but they've ignored me, is it not an indictment? Let's assume that on one part, he doesn't have power over the governor. But what about his political appointee? And I was trying to ask you that question. What does this mean? If the president said, Minister Nyesom Wike ignored me, Siminalayi Fubara ignored me.
Well, I don't. So if that's the case, then both parties ought to be punished. But I don't think that the president said that. If I heard him right, I may be wrong. I may have to look at it again. But if I heard him right, I believe he said that the person or the side that was ignoring him was the governor and the governor's team, that he had spoken to them and they ignored him. I believe that that's what I heard. If that is the case, then the question would be that what were the conditions that were put forward that then led him to be ignored? A president is a very powerful force. And if a state governor should choose to ignore a president, then it must mean one of two things. either the solution that has been brought before the governor is so one-sided, and he felt that it is so unfair that there is no point obeying it, or secondly, he felt that he might have felt that he did not address the issue at hand at all. Now, whether to ignore it or to go back to address it would be a different issue. But if I was the president...
He said, Mr. Cole, he said, precisely, he said, these are his words, quote, "I have made personal interventions between the contending parties for a peaceful resolution of the crisis, but my effort has been largely ignored by the parties to the crisis." Those are the words of the president, okay. But we need to close now. In closing, just in about 15 seconds, please. You mentioned 4 personalities that you think can help this situation. These 4 persons, can you mention them again? Do you think they still have the possibility of resolving this political crisis?
Gosh, it's gone away. It's gone far beyond them at this point in time, but they are still relevant. At the time I had mentioned Atedo Peter's side, I think that he's still a voice that needs to be listened to. I'd mentioned Patience Goodluck because I think that she was very, very involved in the problem that started at the beginning of all of this and has a voice to play at the table when we're working. I mentioned David Ibiaume at that point, and I feel that he needs to come into the picture. I would also mention 2 other people, Ada George and His Excellency Peter Odili. I feel that they all need to be at the table.
All right. Tonye Cole is a founder and a former chair of Sahara Energy and the governorship candidate in Rivers State for the APC in 2023. Thank you so much.